What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Heated Shenanigans Podcast, the only podcast bringing you the heat each and every single week. You got your boys Colin and Scott here on today's episode. And on this episode, very special, something we've been wanting to do for a very long time, something we've got a lot of requests to do for some time, and that is this is our first ever pay-per-view review. And we're going to be covering Wrestle War 92 from Jacksonville, Florida. But before we get into all that, guys,
I thought you were going to be like, from 1992. I was like, Scott, please tell me you know what year this came from.
2010, right?
Yeah, they're just a little confused.
But before we get into any of that, guys, if you haven't yet, smash that subscribe button. We just recently broke over 500 subscribers, which is incredible. Thank you guys so much for all of your support. We could not have done this without you. I mean, it's impossible. We couldn't have created 500 accounts like some accounts do. But
we have not learned bot abilities yet.
No, not yet. That's the next level.
That's how we get 1,000.
Yes. No. Guys, thank you so very much for all of your support. It means so much to all of us here. Also, in the coming days, we have two very, very special podcasts coming out. One with the co-promoter of Squared Circle Expo, one of the greatest professional wrestling conventions that you're ever going to attend, which is in Indianapolis, Indiana, April 7th and 8th of 2023. A lot of exciting announcements coming out for that. And WWE legend, Impact legend, the one and only Victoria, Lisa Marie Vaughn, has agreed to do a podcast with us. It's going to be an exciting episode. Victoria, of course, is 1/3 of GAW TV with Mickey James and SoCal Val, which also, guys, check them out on YouTube. Give them a subscribe. Amazing content over there, as always, from those amazing ladies. But with all of that taken care of, Colin, are you ready to go back in time to 1992?
No, I'm too young.
Okay. Nobody could vote, drink, drive.
I was only 2.
I was 4. Times were much simpler back then.
Yeah.
But so how we'll do this is we will break down the matches, give a letter grade, and then an overall letter grade for each match and for the pay-per-view itself as a whole. Some of these matches were incredibly hard for us to watch. Wrestle War 92 had a lot of great matches, which we're about to get into. Not all of them were great. So, first and foremost, they had 2 sets of announcers for Wrestle War 92. They had Tony Schiavone and Eric Bischoff, which was one of, I think, Eric Bischoff's first appearances on WCW around this time. He was at the entryway with Tony Schiavone doing some play-by-play work, but the primary commentary team for the evening, Jim Ross and Jesse the Body Ventura. Great pairing. I loved it. At the start of the show, they really put over the condition of Sting's ribs. He had been attacked, I believe, by Vader prior to Wrestle War, leading up to Wrestle War 92. Ribs were broken, heavily damaged. I will get into that once we get to the Wargames match itself, because there's some issues I had with that. I don't know if you caught any of this. One thing I want to point out, and I don't know if you noticed this or not, the psychology of the 2 rings. The only match on the card that utilized both rings was the Wargames match, which I thought was a really great storytelling throughout the entire evening, because it made the Wargames special, because 2 rings were going to be involved, not just the one. And I was glad, because as the years would go on, you would start to see more and more people use both rings throughout the evening, which really hurt the aspect of the 2 rings.
Yeah, I mean, I don't watch. I mean, I didn't watch a lot of WCW as a child, and since I didn't really watch NXT for the longest time, they were primarily using the Wargames match style. So I think what was it, last year or this year that was the first time that the main roster used it? I think it was last year, but I can't remember off the top
No,
of
it
my
was
head.
this year that the main roster, NXT had it.
Right. Okay, so yeah, so for me, I hadn't really watched a lot of War Games. I knew the basic rules for it, but I didn't know enough of it, and I was a little surprised while watching this that they didn't, there wasn't a lot of utilization of both rings in other matches, just, for extra spots. But I mean, it is 1992. They weren't as, no offense to the people in 1992, but I feel like the creativity of wrestling has
Evolved
exponentially since the early 90s. So I don't know if it was a WCW thing where it was just like, do not use the other ring, you only use this ring and stay in that ring, or if it was that they just didn't really think anything of it. Or if maybe they were worried about doing something like that and potentially hurting themselves, because the ring aprons
there was a gap.
Right, but the ring aprons are very stiff compared to the center of the ring, so maybe they didn't want to take a bump on that particular spot.
So we'll get to the first match here, which was the United States Tag Team Championships featuring the Freebirds versus Greg Valentine and the Tailor-Made Man. The Freebirds were the champions going into this match. Bill Alfonso was the referee for this one. Not one of the better Freebird matches. I thought there was a lot of backdrops in this one. There's a lot. I think I counted like 7. There was one little botch with a drop down spot, and a lot of good tags. The other thing that I took away from this is Greg Valentine should never throw a damn chop, ever. None of them look good.
Real quick, is Terry Taylor the Red Rooster?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
I thought so.
Yes.
I was like, that name sounds familiar.
Like
I recognize everybody but Jimmy Garvin, because I know Michael Hayes has worked in WWE for quite a while. I think he was in creative, or he's part of the main group of people. So
let's say the finish for this one was won by it was the Freebirds that won with a DDT on the Tailor-Made Man after another damn backdrop. That might have been the 7th or 8th. I gave this one a D+. This was a rough way to open.
Yeah.
I thought it didn't mesh well.
yeah, I'm gonna give it a D. I mean, I did it in stars, not in letter grade, so I'm kind of having to correlate this on the fly. So,
I can switch this to stars. Stars is easy. So stars.
you can do it in letter grade, and I'll just do it in stars, and it just makes it easier. So we don't.
No,
I was thinking of like 5-star matches or whatever.
this was not 5 stars.
Well, I did it in a 1 to 10.
I would stars.
Yeah, 1 to 10 stars. So 10
Well,
stars.
who the hell gives 10 stars?
Because this is it. Look,
10?
I'll do whatever I want. This is
I'm
my
the 5, you psychopath.
this is my grading system. Well, I did it in whole numbers. There's not like half. Not
What
like
the
two.
shit?
Hey, this is my grading system. I'll do it however I want.
All right, you graded 1 through 1,000. Where did it fall on the
It
spectrum?
was a 3.
3 out of 10.
Yes.
Freaking wow. So again, not a great opening in my opinion to Wrestle War 92. I really thought there's a match coming up that I really thought should have opened the show, because the first match of the card, in my opinion, should be something that is fast-paced, really gets the crowd into the evening, set the tone for the evening.
It set the tone for my night.
So when I watched this, it was right after I had my wisdom teeth extracted. And I was pumped up on hydrocodone watching this, and that did not help this matter at all.
No.
So the next match, so you gave it 3 stars out of 10.
Yes. Get over
I
it.
gave it a D+.
Get over it.
So the next match was Johnny B. Bad versus Young Pistol Pete, which is the late great Tracy Smothers, for those who are unaware of all the great things Tracy Smothers did. He was just unbelievably kind individual and had a great heart for the business and mind, and he is deeply missed. It was really good to watch Tracy Smothers work again. Kind of brought a tear to my eye because it just I had the opportunity to meet Tracy Smothers, and we had a long conversation. He treated you like you knew him his entire life. It just tremendous loss. The fans were tucking bucks on Johnny B. Bad, which I thought was kind of funny. In 1992, you got fans tucking ones down Johnny B. Bad. There's a lot of homosexual references by Jesse Ventura towards Johnny B. Bad throughout this one. Like, a lot.
It's 1992!
And Johnny wins this one with the kiss that don't miss, which I liked. I've always liked Johnny B. Bad. I don't know what your thoughts on him. If you were ever introduced to him as Johnny B. Bad or Mark Marrow.
Nah, Mark Marrow.
Mark Marrow?
I didn't know him as Johnny B. Bad. I had no idea what the hell.
Did you know who it was when he came out?
No.
Really?
I did not. In fairness, I didn't know Mark Marrow that well. I knew he had something with Sable, if I remember correct. That's vaguely what I recall from him in the Attitude Era. That's about all I have on him. He wasn't really popular enough ever to really, especially for me, watching the Attitude Era when I was 7. So
I thought it was a really good match. It kind of got, the pace did pick up throughout the match, but it never, to me, it felt like it never got out of first gear. And again, Tracy Smothers, incredible worker. Johnny B. Bad, I thought at this point, really young, athletic, had a lot of pizzazz to his repertoire. But for me, Johnny B. Bad again wins with a kiss that don't miss. I'm gonna give this one a C+. C+.
I went with a 3 as well on this one. I thought it was
out of 10.
Out of 10, yeah. Well, because there's no half, so it's hard to. First off, what's his face that does the 5-star ratings? He gives things like 7 and 8 stars now. So
it's only if you're AEW. He doesn't give them the WWE.
Yeah, well,
and Meltzer.
Yeah, Meltzer just makes up shit on the fly now. So I'll make up whatever system I want. I didn't know you could give 7 out of 5 stars, but apparently you can. So if he can make his own list up, I can too.
Okay, fair enough. The next match we got coming up on this Wrestle War 92 is Scotty Flamingo, Raven.
Clearly 12 stars.
Look, I love Raven. But,
I do love Raven.
Versus a very young Marcus Bagwell. This match I felt could have been a candidate to be the opener for the evening. This was a really... Again, Raven is really good, not only at professional wrestling, but at telling a story throughout his match. He was ahead of his time, and unfortunately we didn't get Raven this with Scotty Flamingo, which, my God, did he look different. Night and damn day.
Yeah.
A lot of flashy moves. It was nice to see Raven wrestle this style as he would go on to change 180 degrees. All of this would disappear in a few years. He would become a much darker character. He would shed the flamingo pink and the Hawaiian and sunglasses. Flamingo wins with a roll-up, grabbing a handful of the tights. I give this one a C. It wasn't an incredibly long match either.
Right. I was watching, I think, a WrestleMania, the one where they had Kane, was it Show? Kane, Show, and Raven all facing off. I think it was for...
17.
Yeah. I was watching that one, and they were talking about Raven going through the glass. And my wife goes, I didn't go through anything. My wife's name's Raven, by the way, too, so she's very fucking confused. But anyway, so Buff Bagwell versus Raven, but just not Buff Bagwell and Raven. I gave it 4 stars. So a little bit better than the first 2. Yeah, I like a bit quicker match normally than slow plodding matches. Which is why I can't deal with the 80s very often.
This next one, I was super excited when I saw it on the card, and the build-up to it, I got very excited. I was soon to be very disappointed as well. You had Junkyard Dog and Ron Simmons versus Cactus Jack and Mr. Hughes. However, there would be a bit of a bait and switch before the match where JYD is taken out before the match. He is jumped by Jack and Hughes. Everybody going at it. I thought this was an odd pairing, having Jack and Mr. Hughes together. Big contrast of styles.
That sometimes works, though.
After JYD gets jumped, Ron Simmons goes full babyface mode, taking them on 2-on-1. Ron's an all-time great. I mean, there's nothing you can say negative about Ron Simmons. He's the man, and I love the glasses staying on Mr. Hughes throughout the match. I thought that was great. Ron Simmons picks up the W here. Give this one a C again. Like, I know what they were going for, having Ron take them 2-on-1, the ultimate babyface move. Again, like, I love Junkyard Dog. I was super excited because I thought, oh, damn, I'm going to be able to watch JYD wrestle. That didn't happen.
So, mine's a bit... Okay, so I have a bit of favoritism because I like Mick Foley and Ron Simmons. So
about your first 8 stars of the night.
No, I only gave it a 5-star, but it got a better rating than the other ones. I think that's partly because, Cactus Jack is really freaking good and Ron Simmons is really freaking good, so hard to beat. And it was different because a lot of the matches have been up to that point. A lot of them had just been like, hey, we're in the ring, here we go, let's go. And this one had a little bit of shenanigans in the front of the match. You gotta have some of that. Sometimes it changes up the pace a little bit, and I thought that was nice to have that slight switch. So it wasn't just 2 or 4 people walking to the ring and going, all right, awesome, now let's start. Like, I think I honestly would have almost kind of preferred this to start.
Really?
I think it would have been interesting to have the beginning of the show just be like, oh, hey, look,
okay,
this shit's gonna get wild already. Like,
okay. And it's war. Okay, yeah. I see. Okay, I like that. I like that. We're not fucking around here at Wargames.
Well,
then, Ron Simmons is a huge babyface. JYD, arguably one of the greatest babyfaces of all time.
Yeah.
And the babyface team went over. Yeah, I agree. You're right, 100%.
Yeah.
This should have been the first opening match.
Yeah.
It didn't have 20 backdrops in it either, so that was nice.
I mean, and half these could have been the first one compared to...
Hey, no, we're coming up...
Except for Wargames.
No, we're coming up on a couple of matches that shouldn't have been on the damn card. So the next one was the Light Heavyweight Championship featuring the late, great Brian Pillman versus Tom Zink, the Z-Man. A little backstory. These guys were a tag team, and a damn good one, too. Ahead of their time. They did a lot of innovative stuff. And there was a split over jealousy. And I loved the story they told of how well they knew one another. There's a couple nitpicks for me in this one. One I thought was funny is Z-Man was afraid of the pyro. It startled him. That made me laugh.
Yeah.
But I was also hyped up on hydrocodone when I watched this. So I was easily entertained.
It wasn't funny. He was just easily amused.
Easily amused. Crowd was hot for this match. Just incredibly into it from bell to bell. I like the placement of the match on the card. It really helped drive the importance of the light heavyweight title. One thing Brian Pillman was very adamant about was wanting to make the light heavyweight title mean as much as the world heavyweight title. And this had a really late placement on the card. Going forward, the light heavyweight title, cruiserweight title would get pushed further and further down on the card.
As is tradition.
Unfortunately. There's a lot of heavy leg work on Z-Man that he didn't sell a lot of the heavy leg work. And I think that took away from the match for me. Brian wins. I gave this one a B+. This to me, next to the Wargames match, this was my favorite match on the card.
I went with 5 stars. I think the crowd helps.
Oh yeah.
The crowd in any scenario. I mean, we found out during the pandemic how important a crowd is to a wrestling show, because it's not like a regular TV show. You need that crowd interaction. It's sort of like a sitcom. Like if you sit and watch a sitcom without the laugh track, it's not really as funny as you would think, typically. Because I've watched a few episodes of shows that have been considered extremely funny, and it's just like without the laugh track, it's just like, why is nobody laughing? Like this is not. So I think it's similar with that in wrestling terms. Like you have to have a hot crowd. If the crowd's not interested, the match gets real boring real quick. We've seen it a lot with Roman in the
Thunderdome.
Yeah.
Did make one mistake. The light heavyweight title match, actually, there's two matches that took place before it.
I was confused.
Yeah, I scrolled down. These two matches could have easily been left off the card. That might be why. Actually, the match after Ron Simmons and Mr. Hughes and Junkyard Dog and Cactus was, oh God, this was horrible. Todd Champion versus Super Invader managed by Harley Race. This was Great Value Vader versus Discount Sting. This match was not good. This match was the drizzling shits. Yeah. I'm sorry. Like this one got. I gave this one a D-. I'm gonna after reflecting and the trauma that it brought back thinking about this match, it's an F. The match was horrible. How the hell you could have given any of these matches that time?
Yeah, I mean, it's just...
Wash the taste out of my mouth.
I gave it 2 stars, so it's the worst... It's the worst one on the show. That's the worst. Oh,
the worst one got 2.
Yeah. Well, I didn't give anything 1 star unless it was just like...
That match? That match was horrible.
I can only think of a handful of matches like... Daniel Bryan versus Sheamus. The 18-second match, that would have gotten 1 star. Even though it led to incredibly good things for Daniel Bryan in the future. But anyway, yeah, it was just... I mean, at least it was a match.
Okay, I mean, I'll give you that, but...
It wasn't great.
It was horrible.
It was... Good thing they fit it in as filler there in the middle. Like
they could have took it off the card.
They could have shaved I think they were just trying to fill 3 hours at that point. Like,
give me an interview. Like
what? Okay, so
you could
anybody else in WCW at this time? Like,
you could have interviewed both sides of the Wargames teams instead of putting this match on the card.
Yeah, I mean, Flair and Hogan were both in WWE at this point.
Flair was. It wasn't too long. Flair had just gone to WWF.
Yeah.
After the fallout with Jim Herd and his dumb shit. But I digress here.
Ric Flair being Spartacus.
No. Woo!
Yeah.
The match that happened after this one was Big Josh versus Ricky Morton, one half of the greatest tag team in all of professional wrestling, the Rock and Roll Express. I do love me some Ricky Morton. Again, I was really surprised with how agile Big Josh was for a big man. And Ricky Morton, this was the perfect guy to put him in the ring with because Ricky can sell. He'll get you over with his facial expressions, trying to get the crowd behind him. Ricky, you could put him in there with a mop, and the mop is going to be the most hated thing in the room. But I have a lot of respect for Ricky Morton. Big Josh got the upset. I did not see that one coming. I thought for sure Ricky Morton was going to get the W.
Yeah, I mean, I gave it a 4 stars, by the way. So about average for this show.
I gave it a C for that.
Yeah, so it's about average for the show. There was only really 2 that got above the 5-star situation, and luckily they were at the end of the show. So at least we went off with a bang. But I mean, it was alright. I've become accustomed to like Braun Strowman, so big men being agile just doesn't surprise me anymore, like it used to.
At the time, Vader was arguably the greatest big man of all time.
Yeah.
But at this time, like Vader was doing stuff that for his size, Vader should not have been doing.
Right.
Just from the eye perspective.
Yeah. I mean, if this were like mid 2000s, I'd have been more surprised. I'd have been like, oh yeah, Big Show's really slow, so this is, ooh boy, like, I'm not as surprised, but I thought it was an okay match for its placement on the card. It definitely was better than the previous one.
Yeah, that ain't a lie. So here's ready for us to butcher some names.
Do you want me to do this?
Go for it. Go for it.
So we got the Steiner brothers, Rick and Scott Steiner. I got that. That was real easy. So from what I gathered, they were battling to be the IWGP, not champions, but they were going to get a shot at the IWGP championship. I don't know why.
Say the names, Colin. Say the names.
So it's Takayuki Iizuka. Sorry. And Tatsumi Fujinami. That is my guess. I am not Japanese.
We will call it, for the sake of not butchering their names anymore, we will refer to them as F and I for the match. It was F and I versus the Steiner brothers.
Yep. Scott Steiner looks way different in this than he does in the future. I was confused. I'm like, that's not the same Scott Steiner. They don't look at all like.
They wrestle very similar, but
yeah, that is not Big Papa Pump.
The power. I could watch a Scott Steiner match every day the rest of my life, and I will always be amazed by the power, the raw power of this human being.
Yeah, I honestly enjoyed this match. I thought I was mildly surprised. I mean, I knew the Steiners already, so I was like, oh yeah, the Steiners are good, but I was like, I don't know who these two are, so is this a squash match? Is this what's this supposed to be? It was very decent. It got the second best score of the night for me, 7 stars, which I thought was pretty good for a 1992 show. The only thing it lacked, it didn't necessarily need to have. There wasn't as much brutality.
Neither was a brutality. The Steiners beat the shit out of them.
Compared to, well, yeah, they got pretty roughed up there towards the end, but compared to what was to come, I mean, it was probably the most brutal match that didn't involve,
the cage.
A cage.
So there was it was a cool counter, but it was an incredibly dangerous one. The counter on the Doomsday device, the crossbody, and I thought Rick Steiner broke his neck.
Yeah,
that was horrifying to see.
That would have gotten me out of my seat if I wasn't sunk into my couch.
If it wasn't for the hydrocodone, I would have been a lot more like my face was like, because I was swollen. I was like, that looked like it hurt. Like if I wouldn't have been on the hydrocodone for my wisdom teeth, I would have been like, oh my god, like it would have got a better reaction. But
that looked like it hurt, like my face hurts right now. Yeah, 7 stars. I thought it was a good match. It was very good for 2 people I did not know and have never heard of before.
I gave this one a solid B+. I thought this was an incredible match. Dude, like I said, I watch Steiner's work every day of my life.
Yeah.
And not get tired of them. So the next one is the main event, which is Wargames. The match beyond. You have Gary Michael Capetta breaking down the rules for Wargames, which I always love hearing Gary Michael Capetta. I want you to give your take on it first. I have a little bit to say about this. I want you to give me your thoughts and your breakdown of the main event.
Okay, so we've got Sting's Squadron, which is Barry Windham, who I recognize, Dustin Rhodes, who is Goldust for those people who don't remember WCW or watch AEW, because he's there then. Nikita Koloff, which is the only one I didn't recognize. Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. And, of course, Sting, because that would have been confusing if Sting's Squadron didn't involve Sting. And they were facing off against the Dangerous Alliance, which is Arn Anderson, of the Four Horsemen fame. Bobby Eaton, Larry Zbyszko, which has more Z's and Y's than I've ever seen in my fucking life. Rick Rude, and the GOAT, Stone Cold Steve Austin, but he's not Stone Cold Steve Austin at this point. He's Stunning Steve Austin. This is before the Hollywood Blondes, too, so this is way... Was it right?
It was before the Blondes. The Blondes would come a few years later.
So this is way back when. Lots of blood. Lots of blood. They were bleeding profusely by, like, a minute into the match. Like,
Barry Windham?
I thought, no, wasn't Austin?
Austin was the first to bleed.
I was like, Austin was the first to bleed. Borderline everybody but Sting, I think, was bleeding, and Sting
had a little bit. Sting did have a little bit of blood.
Yeah, but I think most of the blood on Sting was other people's blood, to be honest with you. Like, damn near everybody in this match was, like...
bleeding.
Dustin Rhodes' yellow tights became polka dot. He was trying to copy his dad, but, you know, with blood. I mean, it was ridiculous. I mean, blood everywhere. The match finish was probably the only thing I didn't really enjoy the ending of it. I felt like villainy, treachery, that whoopsies. I thought brought Sting down a little bit. Like, Sting should have gotten a clear-cut victory, not needed, you know, the Dangerous Alliance to screw themselves over on accident. That was probably the only negative I really saw. It got 9 out of 10. That was the knock, was the finish. I thought was not what I was looking for. To be honest, the roof of the cage is too fucking small.
I love the roof.
I like the roof too, but it needs to be slightly bigger. Like you couldn't do half the moves you wanted to do. Like, suplexes were not a thing. You can't do suplexes in there because you're just, I mean, you couldn't get on the top rope. You had to go from the second rope because the top rope, you're too tall. Like, I mean, it's.
I said Barry Windham's a hoss. So he definitely wasn't getting on the top rope.
Yeah, I was like, I mean, that was probably another thing. Like, the cage felt a little too small. Like, slightly bigger would have been nicer. Maybe similar to the old Hell in a Cell ring, as far as the roof height, not the actual whole thing. Because the old one, the first one, wasn't as high as the current one. The current one's fucking ridiculous. So, that was probably the only real knocks. Like, overall, it was a great match. It was obviously the best, but I mean, there wasn't a whole lot to compare it with, too. So, but it was good overall. A lot of interesting stuff happening.
So there's a lot of holes in the story for me for this one. Number one, I don't think they did a good enough job playing up to the mistrust that the babyfaces had in Nikita Koloff and the fans had in Nikita Koloff, because not too long ago, Sting and Nikita Koloff were in a very, very bitter feud, and they had the one spot where Nikita proved he could be trusted, but they never really built it up. Like, you're in this match, what happens if Nikita isn't 100% on board?
Yeah.
The other big thing that I had a massive problem with is throughout the entire show, they build up how severely beaten and broken Sting's ribs were. Number one, did not even, and this is hard for me because I love Sting, he's my favorite wrestler, does not come out with any bandages around the ribs to sell the fact that the announcers the entire show have been putting over his ribs. That's all they kept saying. I thought the spot with Medusa was pretty cool, where she gets chased down by Sting. That had to be incredibly scary for her, because it wasn't built like today's cages were. If something would have happened, she would have fell through.
Yeah.
This was, in my estimation, the most violent War Games to ever exist. I do not think a War Games has happened that was more violent and bloody than this one. And to me, this embodied everything War Games should be. It was personal, it was violent, it was high impact. And much like you, I had a huge problem with the finish. And this was the other thing. You've been playing up Sting's ribs this entire time. None of the heels worked his ribs.
Nope.
None of them. And the finish, Bob Eaton had the hook. I'm sorry, Zbyszko had the hook.
Yep.
Why didn't he aim it at Sting's ribs? Like, if they're that bad, you crack him with that. He's going to submit.
Yeah.
But no, he hits Bob Eaton.
In the shoulder.
He hits him in the shoulder, and it ended with an arm bar.
Yeah.
Which, again, this was an incredibly brutal match, so submission on something after a steel hook to the arm, yeah, it'll get the job done. But to me, how I think it should have ended is Zbyszko goes to hit Sting in the ribs. Sting does like a go behind. Eaton still takes the shot. You clear out Zbyszko. Sting could then put the Scorpion on Bobby, stretch that midsection when he wrenches back. He gets over with the Scorpion Deathlock. The finish, looking back, was given the story and the context throughout the evening of building up Sting's ribs,
yeah,
and you don't pay off any of that, I'm still going to give this an A. This, and if you compare it to any other War Games, this is the comparison. This is the bar for War Games match. Everything that has come after, there's only been one War Games that has ever surpassed this one, and that was the 1996 one with the NWO versus Sting, Luger, Arn Anderson, and Ric Flair. But overall, for the show, Colin, what would you give the letter grade of the show?
Probably like barely a C. I mean, it just...
Really?
Look, the highs are fine, but there's so many lows that it just kind of, It's also 1992. You have to struggle through it.
I know the wrestling becomes more athletic the more you go on. Like, this was really storytelling driven, minus like Sting's ribs. Come on, guys.
But I've seen good athletic storytelling matches. I mean, I know it's 1992 and the bar is kind of low compared to, the late 90s, early 2000s when the stuff got really good. But, I mean, it's a slog at times. It's 3 hours. There's at least 2 matches that didn't really need to be there. There was a few that were in the wrong spot.
Like being on the card.
The first match kind of really, immediately puts you in a bit of a sleeper hold. And you're just like, okay, I have to get through 3 more hours of this shit. Like, this is what you started off with?
I told you, because we have another pay-per-view review that we'll be releasing in the coming weeks. And I told you, going into this, to start with this one, because this was going to be the hardest one to watch.
Yeah.
Like, there were some highs, not a lot of highs.
Yeah.
But this was, like you said, this was WCW in 1992. But if you look at the main event match, there's like, what, 6 Hall of Famers in the damn thing?
Maybe more.
I mean, Austin, Zbyszko, Sting, Steamboat, Dustin Rhodes should be in the Hall of Fame.
Rick Rude.
Is Rick Rude in the... I always forget if Rick Rude's in the WWE Hall of Fame.
Isn't he in the Hall of Fame with DX? Because he was part of DX?
No, he didn't get in with DX.
Okay.
He didn't get in with DX.
But, I mean...
I want to see Rude's in the Hall of Fame. I always get confused if Rick Rude's in the Hall of Fame.
We got Barry Windham, who I'm pretty sure was part of the Four Horsemen. Correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's in with the Four Horsemen. Dustin Rhodes, I'm sure will get in as Goldust at some point. Nikita Koloff is not getting in. Didn't even know who the hell he was. He's the only one in this match that I didn't know who he was, to be honest with you. Maybe he had a different name later on.
No, Nikita Koloff, the Russian Nightmare, Nikita Koloff.
Yep, nope, sorry. Ricky Steamboat, legend. Sting, legend. You got Arn Anderson, Legend.
Hall of Famer. That's the other Hall of Famer.
I was like, Bobby Eaton, I've heard of him. I don't know if he's a Hall of Famer or not.
Should be. I'm pretty sure he's in the Hall of Fame. Hell of a worker.
Larry Zbyszko, I've heard of him mainly because, it took me 5 minutes to spell his fucking name.
Well, we also had Larry on the podcast.
Right. I was like, there's no vowels in this name until the very end. There's one O. I was like, good Lord. I would have hated to be his teacher as a child. I'm just like, and then you got Rick Rude. Dude was fantastic. And obviously Stone Cold Steve Austin. If you grew up in the Attitude Era, you know who the fuck Stone Cold Steve Austin is, even though it wasn't Stone Cold.
It was Stunning Steve.
Still, yeah, he had hair, so that threw me off. Yeah, I mean, there were so many legends in this show, specifically in this match. You got the Steiner brothers from earlier, both legends. Brian Pillman, very good. Cactus Jack and Ron Simmons, Junkyard Dog. I mean, you got some great people in this show. A lot of people that I recognized, and a few that I recognized after they, have a name change. But it's still the 90s. Like, the first match was and you had a few of them midway through that were kind of meh, and you could have switched some stuff around to make it a little better. So I think just some of the ending of the show is not great. Some of the matches were unnecessary, and a few of the matches needed to be switched and put in different places. So those are the biggest knocks, and unfortunately, those are some really big knocks. Like, the finish of the show has to be really good, the start of the show has to be really good, and you don't want too much filler in the middle. Those are big things for a good wrestling show, and unfortunately, they had all three of those things go wrong. So that's the big knock to it. Yeah, and definitely the storyline of the main match kind of just didn't happen. Like, they just completely conveniently, because Ross and Jesse were talking about it for freaking during the match. They were talking about how long it was taking Sting to get in. Would Sting get in, and when he was going to get in, because his ribs were bothering him. Was he going to be the last one in? Was he going to show them how tough he was?
The first words out of JR's mouth when Sting comes in House of Fire is "busted ribs or not," and I was like, "Oh no, there's no rib tape. Like, what? What? We're not working the ribs.
Nothing happened. Like,
the finish didn't even involve going for his ribs.
Like, that was the bit. Like, the whole storyline of the entire night about Sting's ribs just. They talk about the click thing being breaking a kayfabe. What about this?
God, I'm not putting it with that.
What the hell?
But we're going to wrap it up. I'll give my grade on this, but the overall show is a C for many reasons that what you had listed.
You gave me a dirty look when I said C, and then you gave the same exact fucking answer.
I know. But guys, we're going to wrap this one up. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this pay-per-view review. We've got another one coming up.
Do you want to say what it is, or?
Yeah, what we're going to say. It'll be Survivor Series 2003.
I was honestly disappointed.
We'll get into that. I got a lot of stuff.
When I saw 2000, no. Like, the show was fine. When you said 2003, I was like, I'm gonna get to watch the first Elimination Chamber match, and it was like, oh, that was the year before. Fuck me.
we're gonna cover that one. We're gonna do more of these because these are fun.
Yeah.
Also, guys, in the comments, let us know what pay-per-views you want to see get reviewed or talked about, broke down, all that good hullabaloo. But again, guys, thank you so much, sincerely, for everything that you guys do for us. We really appreciate you. All the likes, the shares, the subscriptions really means the world to us. We're on to 1,000 subscribers, and we're going to get there, and we're really appreciative of everything that you do. And guys, we will see you on the next episode of Heated Shenanigans Podcast.